Stepped on the scene, dripped in saline. Whole crew shining, call me Mr. Clean. Came in from the back, walked right to the front. Dancing to the music, smoking on the. Got the women smiling, punk grilling me, looking all dusty. Black Force energy, I don't even drink, but the team pop bottles. Not here for the beef, but the Glock holds hollows. Think I'm cocky, but I think I'm worse. In this flexing like a Mr. Universe.
The next topic we're going to discuss on Boxing Bros is Crawford versus Spence generates 650,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, there are disputes to this, and we're going to dive into that. But first, we're going to take a look at an article from the Bleacher Report, and then we're going to look at what this YouTube source says. So here's the Bleacher Report. It says Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. topped 650,000 buys, grossed 55 million. So it says last week's welterweight title fight between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. reportedly enjoyed a strong performance in terms of pay-per-view buys and revenue. According to Boxing Insider Dan Raphael, the Crawford vs. Spence pay-per-view event did at least 650,000 buys and possibly as much as 675,000 for a gross of 55 million. Raphael added Crawford and Spence drew a gate of over 20 million at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas as well. Crawford and Spence reportedly earned at least 25 million apiece from the bout, with Spence earning a slightly higher percentage of the purse despite his loss. So that's what was reported from the Bleacher Report. The source is Dan Raphael. Now, if you recall, Dan Raphael used to work for ESPN, and so he has some credentials. Now, here's Rick Glazer. Now, before I go into Rick Glazer always says that PBC's lying about their pay-per-view numbers, and he always comes in with a lower pay-per-view number. Rick Glazer says, been asked why hashtag Crawford Spence didn't do a higher pay-per-view number than the touch under 550,000 buys it did. There are 6 reasons. He says, 1, it went up directly against a UFC pay-per-view event distributed by hashtag ESPN, very poor planning. 2, piracy. The theft of the pay-per-view hashtag boxing events is skyrocketing. 3, both fighters were the same race and are culture, which in fact, hashtag Tank Davis, hashtag Ryan Garcia were not. That's big. 4, when hashtag Al Heyman and Steven Espinoza stopped ESPN boxing journalist Mike Carpenter from being credentialed for the event, all the ESPN outlets cut out anything about Crawford and Spence from that point on, including a big face-to-face on ESPN on Friday. Big repercussions by not credentialing Mike Carpenter. 5, poor marketing. It never caught on with general sports fans. Most didn't know about it. Showtime and PBC spent too much time and money marketing it to boxing enthusiasts. They were buying it or stealing it anyways. They never reached the general sports fan with their marketing. That was also a killer. 6, it turned out to a real boxing enthusiast fight. And doesn't bode well for huge pay-per-view numbers. Now you know all the irrelevant facts behind why Crawford Spence didn't do numbers that the organizers thought it would do. So that's what he's saying.
Still 44 million.
Still not bad, right? But
still not bad. Some bad little pocket change. Still ain't bad little pocket change.
Yeah. So I'll turn it over to you, Dollar Bill. What's your reaction to the 650,000? Rick Glazer claiming it's only 550,000, and just your take on the overall event, the numbers, and some of what's out there.
Listen, like I watched the show. Y'all watched the show. You know what I'm saying? I said that I wouldn't get to 1 million because I didn't think it was enough casuals involved. I didn't see him on the late night shows. I didn't see him on a lot of these other shows. I seen him doing the shows where people already know about it that know they know, you know? So that was my concern. But it's still not bad. What did the fight? How much was the fight for? Like $80, $100?
Yeah, right.
85.
85.
85. And you times that times 650,000. That's still a lot of M's. And even if you do want to hate and say it was 550,000, you times that, that's still over 44 million. And these guys is bringing home 20 million apiece, still off of that. So listen, I'm not mad. These guys still made great bank. It didn't do the numbers that we probably would thought, because it didn't have a lot of casual interest. But it still did good. These guys still was able to make some money. It's still a hell of a change. Look, I'm not mad, man. It's just what it is.
All right, G.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by this number. Like, I was around that range as well. And the reason why is honestly the commentator guy, he did have some of the points that he mentioned I actually agreed with. I am curious to see though, like how much money did like Showtime spend on marketing dollars to promote the fight? Because then that would tell me if the fight was a success or not, right? But from what I seen, like I seen they were promoting pretty good. But again, I am a person that follows boxing, so them targeting a person like me who's already gonna see it is like you kind of wasting your money. You should be targeting casuals and other people that are like, I don't know, maybe, or like who are these guys? Like, I mean, these are that's the audience that they need to grab, because he made an excellent point. Both gentlemen are Black Americans, right? And so the issue is, let's just be real, boxing's a tribal sport. And so when there's big fights, two big cultures collide, there's a lot of faces that are watching it. But you're asking two guys of the same culture to kind of fight each other, that kind of limits the pool of people that are interested. Because Spence too, but more so Crawford. These gentlemen, they're not necessarily promoted like they could be, and so that plays a factor in if a person wants to purchase that pay-per-view or not. So I think now though, moving forward, I think Crawford's gonna have a better time generating more fans, especially as he goes up and takes on bigger fights like the Charlo fight. That's a huge one. Even if he fights Tank, Tank's a smaller guy. Tank is way more popular, so that's another huge payday for him. So these are fights that'll generate large pay-per-view numbers, for him. So I think he's moving in the right direction. It's just unfortunate that, a fight that's been talked about, of this magnitude only generated, 650 to, whatever, 7 or 550 K pay-per-view buys.
TBE.
I hear what you're saying, G. And like the numbers they generate till they like officially verified, I stand on it, because we're hearing 550, we're hearing 650. But those are still high numbers for this fight. I feel like this fight has so much potential, and then it reached where it needed to reach. Because it could have well done over $1 million if these fighters had built up. If it was announced like we were like these fighters fighting like 2-3 months ago, like 2.5 months ago, that we like it announced like Crawford's fighting Spence in July. But I'm gonna be real with you. Like when Andy Ruiz beat AJ, he was on the Jimmy Kimmel. He was on this. He was on that. He was on multiple shows. He was getting interviews out the woodworks, and the stardom got to his head, like where he was getting like, oh, the new Mexican champion, a heavyweight champion, the first Mexican heavyweight champion. TC, you're unified champion in two. You won. You were undisputed champion in 2 divisions. I ain't see him on anything. I ain't get like he wasn't on anything. So for me, at 35 years old, I don't see TC's gonna like run with the torch. It's more, I don't like to say this, like, fighters have their own personality. They have who they are. I don't know if he likes doing interviews. I don't know if he likes going on TV. I don't like even if he wants to fly to New York for the morning show, then fly to California for the latest show, then fly to Hawaii for the evening show. But he doesn't like promoting himself, and that's where like he's the undisputed in two divisions, but he's not promoting himself. So how are people gonna know about a guy from Oklahoma? No, Ohio. What is it? Omaha?
Omaha.
Yeah, you see, Omaha, and he's not trying to be a man of the people. TC guy literally, he's had his experiences, but you can't affect that to get in front of your bag, in front and promoting yourself as a fighter and building your legacy. Because at the end of the day, he's gonna go ahead, Joe.
No, TV. I was letting you cook. I'm just gonna come after you. Finish.
Yo, it's just like you don't want to get people. You don't want to sabotage your legacy where you done accomplished so much great things, but then you're the Hall of Famer nobody remembers. Like there's gonna be you're gonna have that fan base, your fan base, but will the world remember you after all the things you accomplished in the sport of boxing? So TC, all I'm gonna say is, you beat Spence. You got the torch. Don't drop it. Like don't like sit here and be like, I'm too good for this, I'm too good for that. Or I'm not gonna sit here and talk on the radio for 5 minutes. I'm not gonna get on TV for 5 minutes. I'm not gonna do an interview with ESPN because you burn the bridge with ESPN. Maybe this will open the door for them to like, yo, you can come on our show and talk about things that happen and things of that nature.
Did he burn a bridge with ESPN though? TBE.
He caused.
I'm sorry, you had your finger up, but you do know Joe Tessitore from ESPN was at the fight, ran up to TC, and TC saw him. TC ran directly to Joe, and they hugged each other, and Joe was crying.
Yeah.
Worked for ESPN though, but go ahead.
Yeah, worked. But like, let's see. You got an opportunity in front of you. Don't sabotage it, because like before this fight, like it was like this has been like 2 years in the making. Where we've been talking about you and Spence fighting. Now you finally won. You unanimous. Like you beat his egg. Can I say ass? You beat his ass. And all I'm gonna say is, Crawford, you got the torch. Hold it strong and finish pull through. That's all I'm saying.
All right, Troy, you can respond, bro.
I was gonna say, TBE, what you were saying was rightfully true before this fight occurred. Like, yeah, TC wasn't doing a good job marketing himself, being in the public eye and so forth. Yeah, but ever since this fight with Earl, he has actually. When he was trying to promote this fight, we actually did a show where he was coming out of his comfort zone, where he did a whole live when he looked like he was reading off somebody's cue cards. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, he has been coming out. And then now after this win, we have been seeing him more. Now he's been around more. He's doing commercials now with certain people. I just seen him doing a face-off with some ladies selling Tupperware. It's like he's everywhere now. You know what I'm saying? But I do agree with you. He got to stay with it. He got to stay with it and learn everything that and accept everything that comes with it. Like bro was saying this not last week, but the prior week before that. Whoever wins this fight, whether it be EJ or it be TC, their fans and the fans of the other fighter has to get behind the fighter. And they have to push him. Because that's the only way it's going to work. So, yeah, TB, I understand what you were saying as far as, like, how TC used to be, you know? Yeah. But now, since of this win, and what we had said before, like Hayden had said 2 weeks ago, you know what I'm saying? Fighters now, they're going to get behind the guy now who has won. And it's been TC, and everybody has been coming out. You go on Instagram, you go on boxing, and everybody is talking about, everybody is giving him the love. So now we got to see what he does next. Because you're right, TBE. It can fiddle away. It could fiddle away. If he goes in there and fights a guy who is not a champion, or that goes in there, the buzz can die, but can never take away from his accomplishments, though, TBE. Nothing can ever take away what this man has done in this ring. For being a champion in 3 different weight classes and being undisputed in 2 of those weight classes, nothing can take away what that young man has done in that ring. And it will not be taken out of the history books, you know? But I can understand how things can fizzle away if he starts fighting guys who is, non-worthy or, want to get in there and mix it up with some people, non-exciting fights,
Yeah.
But no, nothing that he has done will take away from his accomplishments in the ring so far.
All right, I want to address a few things. So, and you brought it up, Trill. So, one of the things is, and I'm cool. Oh, but also to address UTVE, we have like 3 segments in a row where we're about to talk about TC, and it's based on interviews he's given. He's been on Hot 97, he's been on TMZ, and that was all like in the last few days. So he's been all over the place. Like he's been doing his duty and he's been holding down his obligation. So, like Phil said, you're talking about TC in the past, and don't get it twisted. I've been on TC about this in the past. So is Bob Arum. When Bob Arum was like, he's got to promote. You know what I mean? All these other guys promote. I think he's learned his lesson. And when we look at some of what he's revealed in these interviews, I think it would be telling. So I remember one of the things was when Earl Spence won, people came to our live, and it was a fun live. A lot of people were like, yo, this was a dope live. And it was a dope live. But like one statement was made like, oh, don't jump on a TC bandwagon now. And see, this is something that I said, and like I said, there's no bandwagon. Like Earl's fans, TC fans, they had to be willing to support the winner. And this is why. These 2 gentlemen get into a boxing match. They do 650,000 pay-per-view buys, which is okay. And a guy like Rick Glazier, who, first of all, if you're Rick, what's the fastest way to stay relevant? Always question the numbers, right? So as soon as one source says, oh, they sold 1 million, you say, oh, they really sold 850, because people are going to retweet you because people want to believe that. What's Rick connection? What's his source? He never says it. You think Dan Rayfield's going to lie for PBC? Dan Rayfield doesn't work for PBC. Dan Rayfield used to work for ESPN. First of all, he don't like ESPN or PBC. You know what I mean?
He didn't get cussed out by PBC fighters all the time.
It's like, you want cheese on that burger. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. He the last thing Dan's gonna do is inflate some PBC numbers. Mm-hmm. But of course, Glazier, and if you want to hate, then go ahead and you can run with Glazier's numbers. But Glazier's gonna have to show me his sources. And Dan, to me, I know Dan's credentialed. I know Dan actually does, his duty as a journalist. So I'm gonna ride with Dan on this one and say 650. If you want to ride with Rick, do you? So now let's get to the same race, same culture thing. How petty is boxing? How petty is boxing? See, this is what I'm talking about. They're really going to say that the numbers suffered because both the fighters were black. Someone should have told me that when I paid to see Caleb Plant and David Benavidez. I wish I'd known. I should have just been like, yo, none of these dudes are black, so why am I paying for it? Right? If that's what we're gonna start doing in boxing, right? Because it's not involving a black fighter, so then I'm not going to pay to see Canelo and John Ryder. I'm not going to do that. That's just crazy to me.
I don't think that's what his argument was. It wasn't the fact that they were black. It's the fact that both were black. Because
that's my point. So what happened to? Okay, so if Tank fights Ryan, there's a whole. There's a black fan base and there's a Mexican fan base that buy the fight.
Yep.
So you mean to tell me no Mexicans watched Earl Spence and Terrence Crawford fight each other?
No, of course. But we just know, let's just be real, UK people will support a UK fighter. The Irish fans will support an Irish fighter. Black people will support black fighters. Mexican people support Mexican fighters. Puerto Ricans will support Puerto Rican fighters. So they understand that, it's all marketing. So they're
I'm saying I know that, but my point is, did Mexico not watch Crawford Spence?
I'm assuming some of them did. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know to what degree though. Like it ain't Canelo. You know what I'm saying? I know that for a fact.
Yeah, and that's cool. But what I suspect, and I'm just being honest, is there are people who are like, yo, we'll bootleg that. We won't pay for that. We'll bootleg that. 2 black fighters, we just gonna bootleg that. And it's what I could have done to Caleb Plant, and it's what I could have done to Benavidez, but that's just not who I am as a person. I'm gonna support the fighters. If you tell me that 1.2 million people were interested in Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, I find it hard to believe that they weren't interested in Spence and Crawford. It's just they weren't willing to pay for some reason. And by saying that both the fighters were black, you're acknowledging that when both the fighters are black, some people aren't going to want to pay to watch that fight. And what I'm saying is that's an indictment on those boxing fans. If you're not willing to pay to see the best fight because the 2 participants in that fight are both black.
Shame on you.
That's all I'm saying, because I paid to see the best fight because it's the best fight. I was hoping to pay to see Fury versus Usyk. That's what I was hoping to do. I'm still hoping to do that because I don't want to see Ngannou and he black. You feel me? I want to see the best fight the best. But if you spending money on a pay-per-view is dependent upon the race of the fighters, then shame on you. That's all I'm saying. We gonna write that down as if there weren't a million people who watched this fight, who were interested in this fight. No, I was just, you were more willing to bootleg this fight based on who was participating in this fight. And if that's you, and you did it based on race, then what does that say about you?
Ooh, I almost gave him the thing.
That's all I'm saying. So let's call a spade a spade. Now, he also said that the pay-per-view was hurt because they didn't give Mike Carpenter credentials. As if ESPN is that powerful. ESPN just laid off like 100 employees. I'm not making this up. They just laid off a bunch of people at ESPN because no one's watching their network anymore. They go to YouTube. You know why? Because they're sick of them pushing agendas. And they already know that when you come to YouTube, people want to give it to you raw and uncut. I mean, on this show, we give it to you not as uncut because we have careers. But, you know.
Oh, baby, we like it raw.
But if we didn't have careers, I'm telling you right now, you think the show, you would have been like, hey, every day we out here.
People know, man. They know.
Come on, man. This is the Boxing Bros. They know what it is. We the set trenders. We started everything. People forget. I remember I'm looking in the whole pause thing. We started all that. We started the way people talk, the lingos, cap, all that. Anytime we did all that, and you go to see up, man. Listen, y'all know what it is.
So what I'm saying about this though is let's not act like not giving Mike Carpenter credentials hurt the pay-per-view buys. Like people were really like, oh, well, it's not. They're not promoting this on ESPN because people aren't watching ESPN like that anyway. Okay, so let's stop that. Where I would say there was poor marketing is like where G said and what Trill said, which is they already went to the publications where people already knew them. They went to the shows where people were already going to buy the fight. They didn't try to appeal to the casual audience. They didn't sell the fight to the casual audience enough, which is sad because I feel like they had the storylines. Like if you push Spence being in a car accident, coming back, having the retina injury, coming back, and now trying to get, if you tugged at the heartstrings of the casual, Bud Crawford, grew up a rough life, shot in the back of the head, had to drive himself to the hospital. Don't tell him it was at the dice game and he took everybody's money and he was counting it in the car. Leave that part out. But, you know, put some traumatic music behind it. You could have did something with this. You could have tugged at the heartstrings and casual, and now they meet in a fight to support their families. You could have sold that to some people. But stop acting like ESPN is that market. ESPN is in that market. There are YouTube channels and shows on social media that are more popular. The Pat McAfee show. I don't know if they went on the Pat McAfee show, but they should have went on the Pat McAfee show. It's more popular. In fact, Pat McAfee just sold his show to ESPN for like $170 million. Club Shay Shay is another popular show. You could go on these shows. You could go on these YouTube shows and you can promote your fight, which brings me to another point. Like, I don't feel like the fighters utilize the YouTube boxing community like that. We don't really do interviews like that because, you know, there is that thing where a fighter helps build the channel and then they start whatever. But if fighters wanted to request to come on, maybe we consider it, but we're not actively looking to put you on the show. If you come to us and say, yo, I like to promote my fight on the show or whatever, then that's cool. But we're not looking for you. But I do think fighters should go on use the YouTube community because you have some people within the YouTube community who have good platforms and can get you the exposure. I see fighters go on some channels, but they should actively use it. And I'm not saying the fighters themselves. Your trainer can go on a channel. Someone from your team that you trust can go on a channel and promote the fight and speak with YouTube channels. You know, but again, you can utilize that market. But to just act like, oh, because they didn't do ESPN, yo, this isn't the Stone Ages, bro. Like, I'll be honest with you. I used to watch ESPN all the time. When I was young, ESPN.com was my homepage. I lived on ESPN.com. That's where I got my updates about boxing. That's where I got my updates about sports. Now I go to my phone. I go on YouTube. I go on Twitter. That's where I go. ESPN, I only watch ESPN when there's a sporting event on that I want to watch. This is a basketball game. If it's a fight, I don't even watch First Take or any of that anymore. I'll see their little clips when they try to go viral. And if you notice, all the personalities that were on the old media that were on ESPN, they now got their own YouTube channel. Stephen A. Smith is on YouTube, the Stephen A. Smith Show. Right? You got Marcellus Wiley on YouTube. People are all on YouTube now. Shannon Sharp quit his job working with Skip Bayless. Said, I don't need this. I got Club Shay Shay on YouTube. People are leaving ESPN and going on YouTube. So let's not act like not giving Mike Carpenter credentials hurt this fight. Like, that's just someone pushing it. Like, people start pushing their agendas. I'm going to tell you what hurt this fight. And I'm going to be real with you. And then we can move on. What hurt this fight is people who knew the importance of this fight being successful and they still chose to steal it. And they look like the participants in this fight. Because, like you said, G, Puerto Ricans going to support Puerto Ricans. Mexicans going to support Mexicans. It was the responsibility of every TC fan that came into the Boxing Bros chat to brag to buy the fight. And if you didn't, then you're the reason why this fight wasn't as successful as it should have been. Every Earl Spence fan who went on Bruce Vane's page and said something negative to Bruce Vane, it was your responsibility to buy this fight. And if y'all didn't do it, shame on y'all. But now you see why I said what I said. That it doesn't matter who wins this fight. Everyone who buys it and all the participants have to get together and support the winner of this fight. Because it's the only way we're going to create a superstar. If you don't know now, you'll never know. Go ahead, G.
Yeah, and I was just curious because remember he said something about UFC. So I looked it up. UFC 291 was on the same night as the TC Spence fight. And that one generated 1 million pay-per-view buys. So that's hella reckless for boxing to have a card on the same night as something like that.
So that's where he hit. Wow. That's where he hit. So do you know what the price was for that? Just have
less.
Nah, it just says
probably was less though.
It was way less.
Yeah, I'm assuming it has to be. You know what I mean? So, but it said it generated the UFC 291 estimated revenue was $50 million revenue based on fight card, and 291 official pay-per-view buy on fight day report. It says 750,000 plus sales. So I think they're just combining everything all together. And it says UFC 291 official revenue reported 40 million plus from pay-per-view sales. It doesn't tell me like how much the actual pay-per-views were.
$9.99.
Yeah.
That's fine, but still, that's enough people
Yeah,
to hurt
that
the
definitely
bottom
hurt.
line.
Yeah.
Which also gets me to, I don't understand why UFC and boxing don't coordinate with each other to work on not having fights on the same day.
I think they do that when it's top rank, but UFC, they work with ESPN, so I'm pretty sure ESPN's not going to allow them to do it against top rank. But Showtime, they don't care. They're looking at them.
Well, I still think it hurt their bottom line too, because there are probably a few people who would have watched that fight that end up watching.
Like, think about when you really look at it, DAZN's the only boxing platform that promotes Top Rank and PBC. Like all these other guys, they only promote the guys that are signed to them. DAZN's like the only ones that actually like just cover the entire sport altogether.
So yeah, I think that right there. So all this other stuff to me, wouldn't really have like the impact I would hope. Like I would hope people would buy the fight regardless of the race of the people participating in the fight if it was a good fight. And like I don't really think ESPN made a big dent in it, but based on the numbers of the UFC, I think that could be a major factor as to why this fight didn't do better numbers. So with that, I say it's decent. It wasn't what I was hoping for, but at least it was enough for it to be a success, and hopefully those numbers can go up for TC and Spence in their next fight.
Let us know how you feel in the comment section. Please like and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram and Twitter. And please check out our podcast on all major streaming services. You know you rock it with. It's the Boxing Bros. I was trying to find those UFC numbers. How much was it? Was it $291?
Yeah, $291.
Yeah, $79. So $80.
That's not that bad.